segment. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Arman Tsarukyan, who this past week at UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Strickland in the co-main event spot, stole the marquee spot on our show at least by defeating Damir Ismagulov by unanimous decision, 30-27s across the board on all three scorecards. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your impression of Tsarukyan getting it done over the very tough Ismagulov?
So this was a fight that a lot of people were torn on, including us, and it was competitive, don't get me wrong, but this really ended up being a showcase for Arman Tsarukyan. He won every round of the fight. He was faster. He kept Damir guessing. He threw in combos, which helped him. Damir, at least in the first half of the fight, was a little more like one-shot focused, and whereas Arman was throwing at least two-piece, three-piece combos, and it was the last shot that would land. So he had that going for him, and then most notably of all is he really showed off his grappling in this fight. For what it's worth, at least until Damir got a bit more tired, Damir was unreal at standing back up, like insanely good. You could not get that man flat on the mat. Like, he was always posting. It was like his arms were two more legs. He just has unbelievable arm strength and body control to resist getting put on the mat. But even with that, he couldn't keep Tsarukyan off him. All Tsarukyan's entries were so good, and he varies them, which makes him really tough to defend. And because Tsarukyan kept that pressure and was showing off that grappling threat, I feel like Ismagulov just had to fight a lot off the back foot. He couldn't really get much going because of it. And then even when he tried to turn it up and walk forward, Arman just started ducking under, and he almost had Damir walking into takedowns at that point. So Damir was always competitive, but he was rarely the one scoring, and this was mostly a grappling showcase for Arman Tsarukyan. So he leaned on that in this fight. I think he knew that was his avenue, and he rode it to a big bounce-back W after a tough loss in his previous fight.
Omar, this was Damir's only second professional loss, his first loss under the UFC banner, and his first loss since 2015. What was your impression? Did that make it that all the more impressive for Tsarukyan to get it done over such a talented guy?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about it last week, we talked about how difficult this fight was going to be to pick because of the skill of both these guys. I thought it would be kind of like a coin flip as far as that is concerned. But it ended up being, like Mark said, it kind of ended up being a big deal for Tsarukyan to kind of go through all three rounds, taking all three rounds, being ahead all three rounds. I always thought he was one step ahead the entire time. I was actually super impressed. This kind of goes back to the point that we made a couple weeks ago, where these divisions are so stacked. These divisions are full of people that are significantly good. And a guy like Ismagulov wouldn't normally get sunned, I would imagine, like this by very many guys. And yet here's Arman Tsarukyan, and they're both in this division at the same time, going for the same thing. And shit like this is going to happen. And it was a really good standout performance from Tsarukyan, I thought. The trips and the takedowns, I thought, were absolutely fantastic. They were really standout.
Mark, with this victory, Tsarukyan gets back in the win column after a very close decision loss to Mateusz Gamrot. Put on that matchmaker hat. What would you do next with Arman Tsarukyan in the UFC lightweight division?
I mean, it's not going to happen. I don't hate the idea of him just fighting Gamrot again, because I felt like that result was so controversial, and I really thought Arman did win that fight. But I'm sure we're not going to go that route.
Very close.
In which case, I think Arman may have to wait and see kind of how the chips fall once the rest of the lightweight division is booked. We have a lot of guys who aren't booked right now, trying to see what fight they may get. Like, is some form of Oliveira, Poirier, Dariush going to be made? Is Chandler going to get Connor? Gaethje and Fiziev rumor was floating around. I just feel like there's a lot of moving parts, so it's kind of tough to match him up. But I kind of feel like maybe whoever is the guy left that is not in one of those marquee fights is potentially who Arman Tsarukyan could fight.
Yeah, I mean, he's so young and still up and coming. there's a lot of names out there for him to match up against. Omar, any matchups that you find to be tantalizing for Tsarukyan?
I think it's super interesting that for a division that literally has nobody officially scheduled, there is all the mess in the world when it comes to getting these people to actually pair up with one another at this point.
That's
it is
true.
a mess in the lightweight division. And nobody is scheduled. And I mean nobody in the top 15, with the exception of the champion and Volkanovski. So, with that being said, with all the mess, the one fight right now that really stands out for a couple different reasons. One, it would be a real highlight for Tsarukyan. But on the other hand, Dan Hooker might be able to make a nice little jump back into the hearts and the minds of those who thought he was something by defeating an up-and-comer like Arman Tsarukyan. I think that'd be an interesting fight.
What about Ismagulov? He's still right there. He's only 31 years old compared to Tsarukyan's 26, so he's not going anywhere. Any exciting matchups you think for Ismagulov, Omar?
I would probably put him up against the last guy who also lost to Arman Tsarukyan and pair him up with Joel Alvarez and just see what both of those guys have for each other.
Mark?
That's a good one. I just throw out Gamrot's name. I think that works. Gamrot's coming off a loss. I feel like these guys have kind of fought a lot of the same guys. Like, they've both fought Kutateladze. Now they've both fought Tsarukyan. They haven't fought each other. I feel like they're all kind of around the same area in that division. If not that, I also think he could be a good test for Grant Dawson as like Dawson's first ranked test.
Yeah.
I think that could be a cool fight as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, I like Tsarukyan's point I heard him making leading into this fight. That the top guys at lightweight, they don't want to fight anybody. I think he mentioned the top 3 or top 5. They just want to fight each other, and that's it.
Yep.
I mean, there's an argument for a lot of recycling having gone on in the lightweight division. But the reality was that was a top heavy division. You didn't really have a ton of guys at the time on the bottom half of that division that really justified a fight with those guys. You could put them in, because there's a default or, you want to throw somebody in. But, it didn't really make any sense. The guys hadn't really deserved it. Now you got animals like Arman Tsarukyan cleanly moving up the division. You've got the resurgence of Moicano coming back in from wherever the hell. I mean, you've got a lot of things that are now moving on, and on top of that, you've got guys who have lost, right? You've got the Tonys who have lost, who's now out of the top 15 for the first time in a decade,
Forever,
maybe.
Yeah. And
Conor McGregor also.
RDA is still ranked, but he should be coming out too, because he's a welterweight.
Conor McGregor is also out of the top 15 as well.
Another one
for the first time in a decade.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things that have been adjusting themselves and moving around, and frankly, things just make a lot more sense, I think, now than they did a year ago.
Agree. I get Armin's point, but I do feel like the matchups that were made kind of were the matchups that had to be made. And I've been saying it myself. These guys at the bottom kind of haven't been able to get a fight. So at the bottom of the top 10, haven't been able to get a fight with the guys at the top. But I just feel like it didn't work out. Now we're here, in my opinion. Now is where I'll be annoyed. I hear people saying, let's do Poirier-Gaethje 2 again. And, as much as, sure, we'd all enjoy the fuck out of that fight, I just don't think it's what we should be doing. I think Gaethje should be fighting Rafael Fiziev or someone like that. And I think out of Poirier, Oliveira, and Dariush, whatever two are going to fight each other, I think the other guy should fight a Tsarukyan or someone like that. I think we are now at that point where this needs to be happening.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Any other words you guys want to say about this lightweight fight between Tsarukyan and Ismagulov? Okay, let's move on.
Good fight, man. It's a great fight.
It was, man. It was a great fight. It kind of lived up to the hype. A fight that did not quite live up to the hype was the main event of this UFC fight night in the middleweight division between Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland. It definitely had the potential to be a scrap and to be a barn burner, but stylistically, I felt that there was a strong possibility that we were going to get this kind of fight mostly out of Jared Cannonier. I felt like Sean Strickland pretty much fought a Sean Strickland kind of fight for the most part, and Cannonier was a little tight, a little tentative. Found some big shots, Let's see what you guys have to say. Omar, give us your take of the decision. Somewhat controversial with it being a split decision. Sean Strickland was pretty upset with the way that the scorecards played out. What's your take?
So I know Mark has watched this a second time and has a different take from the first time, but when we did watch this the first time, we all knew the scorecards were going to be all over the place. Regardless, and they definitely were. And I think regardless of what we thought the scorecards were in that moment, I think we all recognize that there were smaller arguments to be made for all of these other little random-ass scorecards. The rounds were very close. The fight, I thought, was very close. If I looked at the fight as a whole, I think it'd be different than if I looked at it round by round. I did think Sean Strickland did more work. I thought he did a lot more damage. But I think there were some visible differences in the way that the strikes were. There wasn't really a lot of turnover from Strickland. A lot of it was a lot of contact, not a lot of power, not a lot of hip rotation. It's just literally just making contact.
It's a great
point. Whereas Cannonier was trying to hit a home run for all intents and purposes. And every time he made contact with Strickland's face, Strickland popped back. There was a lot of power in those punches, and to Strickland's credit, he's got a chin. He ate a lot of shit that I think a lot of people would have went down off of. But they were very few and far between from Cannonier as they were for Strickland. But Strickland didn't really do a ton of visible damage, and that potentially could have swayed the judges in different directions at the end of each individual round. I think if you judge the fight as a whole, it'd be hard to say that Sean Strickland didn't do more work in 5 rounds than Cannonier did. But again, I knew it was going to be a tough fight to score. I knew the judges were going to get destroyed for it. And I do want to give credit to Strickland's corner, because Strickland's corner was very honest with him. Like, I don't know what the score is. I don't know what the judges are doing right now. This is a close fight. You need to go out there and you need to finish him. And he did not, but we need a lot more corner with a lot more honesty in those situations, because telling these guys, yeah, you're up 4 rounds, and then they go out and they're fucking dancing around and having a great time like they've won, and they get caught in this like, oh, I thought I won when they didn't, it gets weird. So credit to the corner for that, but it was a messy fight as far as the judging score was concerned.
Okay, Mark, let's bring you in here. Give us your take, your assessment of the decision of the fight overall.
Yeah, I mean, as Omar said, watching that fight live, I was torn on every round. It was all over the place. I think everyone was torn. The commentary was torn. Obviously, the judges were torn. When I sat down and rewatched that fight, I'm honestly a little confused as to why I was so torn. Like, it's a close fight, don't get me wrong, but I think Sean Strickland wins all of the first 3 rounds of that fight, and he might have even won the 4th. Like, I don't want to give the wrong impression. I think definitely 3 through 5 were all very close rounds. So if you want to give Cannonier all those and say he won the fight, I can't really hate you for it. It's really only 1 and 2 that I think absolutely have to go one way, which is Strickland once I rewatched it. Mm-hmm. But I even think it's tough to justify not giving Strickland 1 of 3 or 4. I can't help but feel he got a little bit robbed in this fight. My guess is that he feels the same, and I think really the story for him was that he kind of had a mastery of the boxing range all fight long that he was able to maintain. Like, he stood his ground. He had great head movement. He was 1 or 2 inches outside of so many shots that Jared threw that I think maybe people thought landed live, and they were stopping, an inch or 2 short, full extension. He was not hitting Sean. He blocked a ton of punches with his arms, with his hands. Even Dean Thomas said it on the broadcast. He was like, man, a ton of these punches are hitting Strickland in the arms. So I don't know how much credit we are giving to strikes that are landing on arms, but there was a lot of them. And Sean was really keeping up some beautiful footwork. He was popping the jab all fight long. And, yeah, I think a lot of what played into it is what Omar said. He was working a lot behind the jab. Typical style, hands down, stepping back, pop. That's what Sean Strickland does. He wasn't turning over the hips. He wasn't throwing the more winging punches, not even really too many hooks, which Cannonier was doing. And Cannonier was maybe walking forward a bit more. And I think in a fight that was that close visually, maybe that's what the judges went to. But you really watch that one back. To me, it's tough to say Sean Strickland didn't win that fight. And, Jared made good adjustments. He started utilizing the leg kick, which was working really well for him. He did find some ways to get inside, but I don't think he did enough. So competitive fight, obviously, but if that's up to me, I think the other guy should have got the nod there.
So
It should also be noted. I'm sorry. It should also be noted that Jared Cannonier still annoys the fuck out of me because, and I said this in the text message. You get to a point in these fights where it's literally going to be out of reach, and at some point, you have to do something to make a significant difference in how the fight is going. You can't tell me that Jared Cannonier didn't know how close that fight was by the end of the third round. How are you still not throwing anything in rounds 4 and 5? Like
I think Jared Cannonier has only one way of fighting, which is why I've never been a Jared Cannonier guy. I don't think he can do other things. Whereas if you told Sean Strickland, hey, Sean, you got to win rounds 4 and 5. You're down 2-1 right now. I think he could have fought much differently and done it. If you told that to Jared, I think he would have been like, all right, well, hopefully I do, and fought the exact same way.
We saw shades of promise in that Brunson fight, and like
did we or did he just clip him? I don't know. I feel like he is one of the most limited is not the right word, but I can't think of a better word. He is one of the most limited top tier fighters that we've ever seen. Like he can't open his game up. It just is what it is, and it works or it doesn't.
Yeah, I would say straight. He's like a straightforward kind of a fighter. Yeah, he's gonna fight his game plan.
So I went on MMA Decisions because I was curious about this fight. Every single round is essentially a 50-50 round. Yeah. Every single one. So it's, like I said, it was a messy fight. It was not an easy fight to score. And I think one of these problems, I think they've started to talk about it a lot more now, but it's really the criteria for these fights is how these judges are expected to score these fights is really arbitrary, and it's very much left up to the interpretation. And it does influence or allow the influence of bias when it comes to people and their preference in how fights are fought. You know what I mean? You're not going to tell me a jiu-jitsu guy is not going to be more preferential over certain positions and aspects of a fight that are on the ground than a guy who grew up boxing. It just their outlooks on the fights, I think, are going to be completely different. I think at some point, if we want to fix MMA judging, you got to fix the criteria.
Well, of course, yeah. Well, guys, we've solved enough problems already on this show tonight. We've solved lake effect. And the fact that we have to evacuate the city of Buffalo, and no one should live in that region anymore, guys. But MMA
That's why
judging,
I fucking left.
That's for another night for us. Oh boy. Well, I don't entirely agree. I think Sean Strickland also pretty much fights the way Sean Strickland fights. He's not a game planner. He's gonna come forward. He's gonna box the way that he does in that particular way with his hands kind of down, and it works for him too.
I just think he could have turned it up if he knew that he had to.
I agree.
I think he thought he was winning.
But like, so what? So what? How are you teeing off on a guy so consistently and you don't turn it up at all? Like not even push the gas a little bit, see if you can redline just a smidge and see what happens, and then tone it back down if it's not working out. Like the fact that no one changes up their pressure and their tempo or anything like that. Maybe they are playing it safe. Maybe they don't want to put themselves in bad situations. But then don't bitch. Like if you're not going to do everything possible to win that fight, then don't bitch when you don't win off of a close fight. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
The scorecards. Oh, this is what I pulled up before I wanted to mention. Sal D'Amato scored the fight the way you would have, Mark. He gave Sean Strickland rounds 1, 2, and 3, and then also round 5.
I wouldn't have given. I thought 5 was the only round that was clearly, not clearly, but I thought 5 was the best argument for Cannonier.
Okay. Derek clearly gave Cannonier 1, 2, 3, and 5. So the exact opposite of D'Amato. And then Junichiro Kamijo scored it for Cannonier 1, 2, 4, 5. And only round 3 for Strickland.
Not a single unanimous round in the fight.
Not a single unanimous. Right. Yeah, that's right.
Crazy.
Anyhow, let's match up these guys real quick. Say again?
I wonder when the last time we saw that is.
Yeah. Anybody who knows, comment below and let us know. Let's quickly match up the winner, Jared Cannonier. So he keeps his spot. Mark, I'm interested to see where you have him in your ranking system. Mark, let me stick with you. What would you do with Cannonier next, since he got the W?
I have Cannonier number 5. I think if I remember right, the UFC has him higher than that. He's 5 for me. I don't know what you do with him. He may have to wait a little bit. I know, obviously, Paulo Costa just fell out of this Whittaker fight. Is it realistic to think that they'd already give Cannonier another shot at Whittaker? I know 2 years have passed, so maybe Whittaker does need a fight, and most guys seem to be matched up. So I guess that's possible. If not, maybe he waits for the Vettori and Roman Dolidze winner. But I'm curious to see what Omar thinks.
Yeah, Omar, go.
So Jared Cannonier is number 3 on the UFC's rankings. This is another one that's kind of a mess of a division right now, and guys are just starting to climb up now at the bottom half of this ranking. But this is another one where I feel like we've recycled a few guys up here in a few fights, and you can't really argue with it. You've got Robert Whittaker, one of the best in the world, who doesn't really lose to anyone other than Izzy. Izzy just lost for the first time in the middleweight division in his career, in his MMA career. I mean, there's not a lot of movement here for Jared Cannonier to really do anything with. It'd be nice if they could do the Perth one on short notice and get Robert Whittaker that fight. I doubt that's going to happen at this point. Whittaker generally needs to cut some weight, so he would have already have needed to keep going in order, I would imagine, to make weight and all that other stuff. So, I don't know, man. Does Vettori? I don't know if Vettori has a fight lined up at this point.
Yeah, I just said Roman Dolidze.
That's right. They just did that one. Yeah, that's on my list.
Which, in retrospect, now, like, I feel like I would have rather seen Vettori Cannonier get booked. As much as that's a fun fight, I just feel like Vettori Cannonier makes more sense.
Yeah.
And like, who the hell knows what's going on with Costa? And Costa is like in number 5, 6, 7, something like that.
Yeah. Hey.
So yeah,
got him re-signed. That could work.
It's a mess. Because how far down do you go with Cannonier? Like,
you know what's an idea?
At what point does he?
What weight class is Chimaev fighting at next?
Who knows?
Because that's not a bad one.
Damn, you want to throw him in there? Well, I guess.
If he's going to take a middleweight fight, most of these guys are booked up. Jared Cannonier is not a bad welcome committee to middleweight.
I mean, I don't hate it. Cannonier either has to fight or get his ass beat. So,
yeah,
I'm about it. I'll take it.
What about Mr. Strickland, guys? Omar, give me a name for Sean Strickland.
Oh, Sean Strickland. Why don't we just throw his boy in there? Let's see Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis go at it. I'm fine with it.
Won't.
They wouldn't.
They absolutely will.
They would. Yeah, you're right.
So Chris Curtis has said on in an interview, he was like, if I didn't take a fight with Sean Strickland, he would be so pissed at me. He assaults me for free on a daily basis. You think he doesn't want to get paid to assault me? He absolutely would be mad if I didn't take this fight.
That's funny.
So,
that's funny. Wow.
Fuck it, I'll watch it.
That's not bad then. I'll go the winner of this Imavov Gastelum fight that's going to open up 2023.
Oh. Okay. All right, boys. Let's move on down the list because the clock's ticking.
Ooh.
Where are we at here?
Guy says the clock is ticking.
Caceres.
I don't even know where we're at.
Mr. Caceres.
You're in charge of the pace over there, pal. Keep it moving.
I got this one wrong. I think I went with Juicy J, Julian Erosa.
I think we all did.
I think we all did, man.
Alex Caceres in the featherweight division defeated Julian Erosa by TKO via head kick. Sneaky head kick. It was nice. It was real nice. In the first round, official time 3:04. Mark, give us your take of the performance of these two featherweights.
I couldn't believe how quick this one ended. I fully expected to see an extended scrap out of these boys, but Alex Caceres had other plans. Julian had a hard time finding him all fight, honestly. Alex seemed faster. He was doing a great job at staying just outside of Julian's range. And then, boy, did he move him right into an unbelievable knockout. Like, that same side hook and head kick combo is such a beautiful combo that, honestly, I'm surprised we don't see more of. But because if you can get your opponent to move his head to the outside of that hook, I mean, he's sitting right there for that head kick to land. But I'm sure the reason we don't see more of it is because it's not an easy combo to throw, because you got to balance on the one leg the whole time as you shift from the hook to the head kick. And for Caceres, that's light work, but not everyone can pull that off. So if you're capable of that like he is, that is a dangerous freaking combo that you can walk someone into, and he landed it as perfectly as you can land it in this one and put Erosa out. Put him out bad, and a very big statement win for the legitimacy of Alex Caceres.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Omar, why don't you weigh in on this awesome head kick knockout by Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy?
Yeah, absolutely beautiful kick. I'm trying to remember the specifics of the kick itself, whether he was southpaw or not the entire time, or if he ended up switching. He was southpaw. So the beauty of this kick is also the difficulty of this kick, because when the guy, so if he's southpaw, right, his left side is essentially his power side, and it's slightly a little bit further back than his front side, so his jab would be his right hand, as opposed to in an orthodox stance, his jab would be his left hand. So he's in a southpaw stance. He overthrows the power hand, so the left hand in this case, overthrows it. That forces Julian to slip the punch. He slips off to his right side. In the motion that he throws his cross, he's taking his leg along with him. So it's a two beat, but it's all the same momentum. And there's no real snap to the kick, because the kick just comes up. And if you look at the extension on that kick and the rotation that you actually need to make it hit shin bone and not the side of your calf, bro, the dexterity for somebody to have in their legs is next level for that kick to land the way that it kicks. So it's not an easy kick. That's probably why you don't see it very often, because a lot of guys don't have that kind of hip rotation or dexterity in their legs. It's not normal to have that kind of shit just off the bat. And you know, if you watch a lot of MMA guys, there's a very big discrepancy in, you know, the dexterity that they have in their legs and kicks and things like that. You watch a karate tournament, a taekwondo tournament, they all fucking legs are everywhere. That's what they do. That's how they live. But in MMA, there's so many different styles that they don't always focus on the same type of things that other guys do. So Bruce Leroy is here with all the dexterity in his legs, and he showed out that night.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a combo that, like, if Izzy threw and knocked someone out, people would be talking about and breaking down that combo for, and I was going to say weeks, forever, possibly.
Yeah.
And I feel like no one really talked about what Alex Caceres did, and they should, because that will stick in my brain for a while. That was beautiful.
Dude, honestly, it gives me shades of when Carlos Condit threw a two-piece, ducked under, and head kicked GSP. Yep. It's one of the nastiest little combos I've ever seen.
Shades, you're right.
Absolutely.
I see it.
Sticking with you, Mark, let's match up Alex Caceres real quick, the winner of this featherweight matchup. Where would you go with him next at 145?
I think Ryan Hall is due back in the somewhat near future. And I just think putting those two in there and seeing them try to figure out the puzzle that each other presents would be highly entertaining.
Nice. Omar, any names?
I don't know if Caceres and Andre Fili have ever fought. I feel like they have a while ago, but I'm not sure. If they haven't, I think this is probably a good time for that to happen.
I don't think they have. It's not coming to my mind. I'm looking right now. No. Have not.
Make it so, number one.
What about Julian Erosa, Mark? You got a name for me for Erosa?
Yeah, I will take the winner of Josh Kulabau and Melsik Bagdasaryan that's coming up and match him up with that man.
Omar, any exciting matchups that strike your fancy for Juicy J?
So you guys know I like Julian Erosa, but at the same time, I don't want to coddle him. And this gentleman, Charles Jourdain, has had some interesting fights in the UFC. Not the best luck in the outcomes, but the man can scrap. So I think it'd be an interesting fight to see who actually comes out on top successful there.
Okay, let's move on to the lightweight
Erosa
division.
choked him out a couple years ago.
God damn it.
Or like 1 year ago.
That's okay. It's a long time ago.
It's not that long ago. This is bullshit.
Yeah,
Okay, boys, in the-
Bravo choked him. Crazy.
Let's go. In the lightweight division, Drew Dober defeated Bobby Green by knockout at 2 minutes 45 seconds of round number 2. Omar, give us your breakdown of this little fight that went down.
It's a wild fight, man. This was a wild little barn burner. Bobby Green was putting the beats on Drew Dober for round 1. I mean, he was like Cody Garbrandt and this boy inside of that octagon, short of moonwalking. I mean, he was putting on moves. He bloodied up Drew Dober. Drew Dober's face was a mess by the end of the first round. And it was a lot, honestly, mostly off of jabs, some counter crosses. But Bobby Green kept it simple. Bobby Green just laid out the fundamentals as beautifully as you could ever watch. I think he's even better at the fundamentals, frankly, than Sean Strickland. And I say that knowing full well Bobby Green just got knocked out. But
he's definitely better. Yeah, I agree.
He's so damn good. Drew Dober, though, is a tank. And that is just a fact. I think we've talked about it before. I think nothing short of a sledgehammer to his head is going to stop Drew Dober. And Bobby Green is just not a sledgehammer. Yeah. So, round 1, absolutely Bobby Green's world. Round 2, Drew Dober went full juggernaut mode, bit down his mouthpiece, and eventually was able to push right through a lot of those combos. Got Bobby Green up against the cage. Bobby Green zigged and one zagged too many and ate some shit for it. So, great fight. A nasty ending from Dober. Real hype train killer with Dober. It's fantastic performance.
Mark, fill in the blank. Bobby Green is not a sledgehammer, but
something that weaves a bee.
I'm thinking of like a weapon, like a...
Yeah, but weapons don't weave, so I couldn't think of any that worked.
I'll go with the fencing.
Bobby
I'm
Green
thinking a fencing sword.
Yeah,
he's like a nunchuck. He's like a nunchuck.
Yeah, you can do a nunchuck. That works.
Nice.
Yeah, this was a crazy story, the way this thing played out. I thought Bobby Green could outclass Drew Dober, but holy hell, we got about 7-8 minutes of Bobby Green absolutely schooling Drew Dober. And I'm sitting there like, fuck, thank God I picked Bobby Green because this is not even close. Even I didn't think he could look that good against Drew. But then to continue, what was the crazy story? We get Drew Dober doing Drew Dober things. The guy just bites down. He accepts that he can't find Bobby Green in there, and he could not. But he says, I got to find a way to walk him down. I got to find a way to get him backed up against the cage. I'll absorb 3 shots so I can land 1 shot. And that's exactly what he did, and he was getting clipped every time he tried to walk Bobby Green down. But eventually he gets in there. He switched up his timing really beautifully to land that kill shot left hook that he landed. It was kind of like 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Like it was like a delay, and Green just got thrown off by the timing switch, and he turned the fight on its head in a matter of seconds. And he flipped a fight where he was getting outclassed into a fight where he gets a highlight knockout. So that's the thing with Drew Dober. He is a dog. He's a smart fighter, which helps, and he's a dangerous fighter. And because of all that, he's never out of it. And that is a monster win for him.
Although, I mean, apart from the Islam fight with Bobby Green, I feel like Bobby Green almost never looks bad. He like always looks really good. Like, man, this guy's very good at fighting.
To be fair, Bobby Green didn't even look bad against Islam. Just Islam looked superior in general. He didn't even let Bobby Green do shit. Yeah.
Okay.
I did that timing the wrong way, by the way. I slowed it down. He sped it up. It was 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. But if you see the clip, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Man. Dober has quite a few attributes that he can go. He could go far in lightweight. He could. He's got a great chin. He has good enough cardio. He has really good power for 55. And
Yeah, he happens to be in a division full of killers.
He does. So
Yeah, that chin's not going to hold up at the top. You can't do what he did with Bobby Green against people like Michael Chandler or Gaethje or even Dariush at this point. Like it's not going to work.
Drew Dober's got a melon. He's got a big head.
He does.
Give me a name, Omar, for where you would want to see Drew Dober go next at 55.
So he called him out in the cage, and I got to say, I really like to call out him against Jalen Turner would be a hell of a fight. I don't see any reason why that fight wouldn't cause people to watch at all. That's a great fight, great matchup, and it would see if Drew Dober's ready for the top 15.
Mark?
Finally.
Yeah, I got no problem with that fight. Just for something different, if we don't get that one, I'll throw out a name that Omar actually used earlier, which is Dan Hooker. I just think that fight would be incredible. I'd love to watch them play the mental game as much as the physical to compare, each other's toughness. I just feel like there's a lot of fun angles to that fight.
Okay.
Nice.
Mark, any names do you have for Bobby Green before we move on?
He looked so good that I kind of want to give him another fairly big chance. Like, I don't want to necessarily reset him. I don't know when Diego Ferreira is due back. I know he was hurt. I feel like it's been a minute. I'm imagining he'll be back soon. But I think someone like that who's kind of been in the edge of those rankings, been in the mix, I'd like to see Bobby get one more shot against that type of a fighter.
Okay. Omar?
So for Bobby, hear me out. I don't know if it would happen, but him against Paddy Pimblett, I think would be fun. I have no intention of keeping.
Sure.
I have no intention of keeping Paddy Pimblett safe. At this point, if he dies, he dies. But in the meantime, I'm going to get some good fights out of it. So, Paddy Pimblett versus Bobby Green.
I would be picking Bobby
All day.
without really debating it.
All day. Yep.
Really? Wow. Love it.
Oh, yeah.
I would.
I don't think the ground game of Pimblett is let me rephrase. I don't think the getting to the ground game of Pimblett is good enough to cause worry for Bobby Green. And the striking, we're not even going to do that. Bobby Green's on a different level.
I think Bobby's underrated on the ground. I think against Islam it doesn't matter because Islam is Islam.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I don't think he's so easy to take advantage of.
I don't think he's easy to take down for a wrestler, let alone for somebody who technically doesn't wrestle.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Let's jump down into the prelims of this UFC fight night, Cannonier versus Strickland, with some bantamweight Saeed on Saeed violence. So we had Saeed Nurmagomedov defeating Saidyokub Kakhramonov by submission via, is it called a ninja choke?
Yeah, it was a ninja choke.
That's sick. Good name. 350 of round number 2. Omar, give us your take of this bantamweight matchup.
So I feel like this was another one that we had some issues picking. I think we had sort of a coin flip kind of deal here. I can't remember for the life of me who I ended up picking. I feel like I might have went Kakhramonov here.
Your boy got it right.
You got Nurmagomedov. It was a nasty fight, man. That was a wild little fight up until it ended. I mean, they were scrapping. They were scrapping back and forth. The pace was high, like it usually is for guys like this. 135, especially these high level wrestlers, these Dagestani kids. But he took an opportunity. While they were rolling and scrapping, got against the cage. He grabbed his neck and was able to just pull off a nice little ninja choke, just like a modified guillotine, basically. But it was beautiful. It's good.
Mark? Your take?
I'm looking up. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm going to correct us before the comments yell at us. Kakhramonov is Uzbek, not Dagestani.
Nurmagomedov. Is not Nurmagomedov not
yeah.
Dagestani?
He is.
That's what I mean.
Kids. I think you meant both of them. Yeah.
Oh, no. I
Gotcha.
meant, yeah.
I'm just protecting you from the comment guys who like to tell us where people are from, even though we know.
No, I hear you. They would tell me that not only is he not from Dagestan, but to, never forget Islam. So I get it. I understand.
Yeah, the pace in this fight was something to watch. Kakhramonov brought the pressure just like you knew he would. He knew, like we all knew, that he would have to be that would have to be the game plan, just to get inside of the distance striking that Said brings to the table, and that's often the game plan for Kakhramonov anyway. So yeah, he was ready to go, and to be honest, he had even more success with the pressure than I imagined that he could. He controlled that fight for nearly as long as it lasted, but on the flip side, Said was always okay. He was always moving. He was always scrambling, defending, and most importantly, he was always threatening. He never panicked under that pressure. He never let it deter him, and he kept trying to find openings, and he found one. That ninja choke was nasty. It went in and out about 2-3 different times in that sequence before he was finally able to latch it up for good. And as much as Kakhramonov was trying to escape, it just got real tight real quick, and he realized he had to get out of there. So, yeah, a big, I guess you would call it a come-from-behind win for Said Nurmagomedov.
Sticking with you, Mark, for Nurmagomedov, give me the next name that you would put him up against with at bantamweight.
I'll throw out two. The more realistic choice would be Chris Gutierrez, another guy who just got a big win. Two guys kind of on the come-up in the division, entertaining fighters, entertaining strikers. I think that's a great fight. The other, while aggressive and unlikely, I still want to throw it out there, which is Dominic Cruz. For some reason, I'm just super intrigued by how those two would match up on the feet, on the ground, everywhere. I don't know what it is. I really like the idea of that fight.
Okay. Omar, any other names?
Yeah, so I thought he was going to go Ricky Simone. I thought a Ricky Simone fight would be super interesting. The pace that Ricky Simone presents, and that kid's ground game is nothing to be sneezed at either. So that presents some real issues, I think, for the game of Said Nurmagomedov. I don't hate the Dominic Cruz one. I don't think Dominic Cruz takes it. If there's anybody that's super picky, if there's anybody that's super picky in the UFC, I think it's Dominic Cruz at the top of that list for sure. But I would love a Ricky Simone fight. My backup was Chris Gutierrez.
Like it. You guys do you have any names for Kakhramonov, or do you want to move on to one more?
I'll give you one. I'll say the man that Said just beat right before him, which was Douglas Silva de Andrade. I think that is an awesome fight and a scrap.
Nice. Okay. Let's move on, unless Omar has any other words to say about this fight.
No, I was thinking about Cub Swanson for Kakhramonov.
I actually like that. I like that.
Okay.
God, he might just eat Cub, though, with the pace. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at in my head. That's why I didn't really want to say it.
All right, boys. Down in the flyweight division, one more fight for us to sort of break down before we throw other fights into our lightning round. So in the flyweight division, Manel Kape gets it done over David Dvorak by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28, all in favor of Kape. Mark, let me toss it over to you. Your boy got another W. Give us your take.
Yes, sir. Keeps it rolling. This was a weird fight and a good fight at the same time, kind of. We had a whole lot of David Dvorak almost running around the octagon to avoid exchanging with Manel Kape. It seemed like he was looking to grapple. But then once he finally gets it to the mat, he finds himself in a terribly deep Kimura. And, God, I don't know how the fuck he didn't tap to that Kimura because it was bad. And then, also I want to say, I was trying to think at the time, and none were coming to my mind. I don't think I've ever seen a more torqued Kimura that someone didn't tap to. Can you guys recall any?
That didn't break?
That didn't break and someone didn't tap to. Like, it looked like his arm should have been shattering. But anyway, we can circle back to that, because I couldn't think of one either. But yeah, and then Kape from that point, round 2 opens. He really even before that in round 2, he had started to piece him up a bit. Round 2 opened, more of the same. The body shots were so clean, and I know we know this, but Manel Kape is very, very good. And once he kind of got to work on the feet, he more or less just coasted to a one-sided victory here, and Dvorak didn't have anything for him. He couldn't get it back to the mat, and he was just stuck eating shots and getting pieced up. He survived. There was a couple times I thought maybe it was going to be over, so I guess a little credit to him on that, but he had nothing for Kape on the feet.
Nice. Omar?
I think this was a nice little showing from Manel Kape because he got 3 rounds to play with him. He got 3 rounds to show off. Striking was fantastic. He's gotten a lot of these. He had some early trouble when he first got in, when he had a lot of hype. And then he came out and missed weight, had a little controversy there. Still finished the guy, but there's always going to be like that, but you didn't really make weight. So I think this was nice. We did this one clean. He came in, he put a beating on this kid for 3 rounds. Clearly took that fight, I think, without any controversy. So I think it was a good showing from Manel Kape. I think the competition could have been better, but I think it was a short notice replacement that Casey Kenny kid came in as.
David Dvorak, you mean?
Yes, sorry. I don't know why I just had that name in my head. But yes, David Dvorak I thought was a last-minute replacement. But Manel Kape did work, man. I thought he had a fantastic performance. I just want to see the level of competition go up the next time around.
Speaking of staying with you, Omar, what level of competition would you want to see Kape go up against next?
So,
Meaning the next fight.
where does the UFC have Kape now? Because I would imagine he's top 10 at this point.
It doesn't
Dvorak
low
was
top
9
10,
going into
but-
that fight, so he's got to be.
Yeah, so they have him at 9 right now. So if I had to put him up against somebody, personally, I think the fight with Brandon Royval would be absolutely fantastic. But I could also see a fight with Matthias Nicolau also being absolutely fantastic. So give me either one of those, and I'm up for it.
Mark?
Yeah, he would probably love that rematch with Nicolau because that's the fight that he was super furious about the decision that he thought he won, and we are kind of there now where you could justify it.
Yep.
I will say that, although now that I'm thinking about it, I was gonna say he could fight Alex Perez since Kakhramonov got hurt, but did Perez already get matched up? Oh no, wait, sorry,
Actually, I don't think
bugging.
so.
He did get matched up against Manel Kape. We already know the fight. That's what happened. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm fucking blanking. Yeah, Kape got Alex Perez. That is booked. So we are wasting our time here right now. He
also on my list.
when Kakhramonov got hurt, they moved Alex Perez back off of that card, and he's fighting Manel Kape. So that's what we're doing. That is the fight.
Nice.
I have a lot of fight announcements that I had to get through, and that is on my list, and I totally forgot.
All right.
It's fair. We got a lot going on here.
All right, boys. In the interest of time, let's jump right into our lightning round. All right. Lightning round for UFC Fight Night. Cannonier versus Strickland. Here we go. Amir Albazi knockout over Alessandro Costa. Mark, go first.
Costa had some skills and some power, and he made Albazi kind of have to be careful in there. But by round 2, Albazi took it over, got the first knockdown, controlled on the ground. And, I mean, the bottom line is that Albazi is very good, and he's good everywhere. And he's a guy who's ready for a big fight. So the timing on that uppercut at the end was picture perfect. He gets the win he needed to keep the momentum rolling.
Omar?
Yeah, man. By the time that uppercut landed, too, this man was already a tenderized piece of meat. He had been getting worked up until that point. And Albazi has some heavy hands. He looks like he hits terribly hard.
Very, very talented.
So I do not envy the position Costa was in. Great win for Albazi.
Okay, opening the main card of UFC Fight Night in the middleweight division, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk defeats Cody Brundage by knockout in the very first round. Omar, take it.
Man, this is not how I saw this fight going at all. But Cody Brundage got run through, man. He got literally tanked over. What a nasty performance from Olikton, from Mikhail. Fantastic.
Marco.
Let's go, baby. My boy Mikhail keeps rolling. He's interesting in middleweight, man. He's interesting. And he did well in this one. Brundage was able to get the wrestling going early and kind of keep Oleksiejczuk contained. But he did well to defend. He did a great job to reverse position. And then as soon as he was in the driver's seat, it was just a matter of time. He ends up raining down bombs on Brundage. And Brundage goes out. So a great win for Oleksiejczuk, and he keeps moving up here.
I just want to point out really quick, this is a great example of a wrestler getting put on his back and seemingly like a fish out of water. The man was flailing with no knowledge of how to get out from under his ass for the entire round until he died. It's crazy.
Oleksiejczuk. Okay. In the feature bout of the prelims for this UFC fight night, in the women's strawweight division, we had Corey McKenna defeating Cheyenne Vismus by UD. Omar, take it.
Corey McKenna is a dog, man. I don't really know what her ceiling is right now. I don't think this is the appropriate time to talk shit about her. She is a very unassuming woman. Doesn't seem like somebody who would make their way all the way to the top. Doesn't even seem like if you met her somewhere random that you'd be like, professional fighter. Totally, I see that. Not at all.
Yeah.
But the girl's a worker, man. A worker, tough, and definitely put in the work against Vlismus. Took all 3 rounds, I think, as far as I was concerned. I got nothing bad to say, man. I'm just curious to see where she goes from here. I'm very interested. I think she's great.
Mark?
Yeah, she's small for the division, which is tough for her. But this was a good scrap. Both girls had plenty of moments where they looked good. McKenna's wrestling and clinch work are what ended up, edging things out in this one. But even in the loss, I thought Vlismus never stopped working. She was always looking to catch something. So I thought they both came out looking pretty good here.
Yeah, man.
And I agree. McKenna's interesting. She looked bad in her one loss to Elise Reed, like confusingly bad. But otherwise, she has been pretty impressive in her 3 wins. So I am also curious to see how far she can take this. But I do think the size is an issue as she keeps working her way up.
Okay. All right. Still now in the prelims, Matthew Semmelsberger defeated Jake Matthews by unanimous decision. Mark, go.
What a weird fight to watch. First of all, it hurt my soul because I'm such a Jake Matthews believer. And I was so hyped after his last performance against Fialho, thinking, here it comes. We're finally hitting the point where Jake Matthews is breaking through here. But a weird fight to watch because Jake Matthews loses it and he gets dropped 3 times, yet he looks better in much larger chunks of the fight than Matt Semmelsberger did. And that's because Jake honestly is the more talented guy and he should have won this fight. But geez, I love you, Jake, but if you're going to fight this way where you're trying to like slip and rip and all this, you got to keep the left hand up sometimes and block the right hook. I mean, he was just sitting there for that right. All 3 times he got dropped, it was a right hook with his hand down. So he's going to have to clean it up a bit. He let 3 punches change the whole fight. Went down all 3 times that he got landed flush on, and it's a disappointing outcome for him because he looked good other than those 3 punches, and it's a huge win for Matt Semmelsberger's career.
Omar.
Yeah, that one was sad to watch, man. Had some high expectations for what Matthews could have done. You saw shades of it in that fight, but very few and far between. And there's a part of me, dude is tough though, because the shots that Semmelsberger did end up landing on him that put him on his ass would have probably put a lot of people out completely. Totally. And he probably should have went out a couple times that he just, gritted his teeth and kind of pushed through and tried to grab legs and all this other stuff and survived it. But there was some surviving going on. That was not a flash knockdown. Like, he was hurt. There was pain. And
first one looked bad.
Like, yeah. And it didn't really get any better, man. Like, every one of those hits, his eyes rolled back. Like, he was looking into space when he got hit. They weren't great. So, I mean, credit to Semmelsberger for being able to put on a performance like that. But, I still think Jake Matthews is a better fighter overall. But it just didn't happen in that fight, man. Sucks.
Okay, let's move on. This fight went down at a catch weight of 158.5 pounds. Rafa Garcia defeated Mahashate 30-27s across the board. Omar, sticking with you. Take it.
Yeah, what a gross-ass fight this ended up being. They were covered. And were they both bleeding at this point? I don't even remember now.
No, it was
they
just
were both
Garcia.
bleeding. It was just Garcia?
I mean, Mahashad might have had like a little cut or two, but he wasn't like dripping.
He wasn't gushing.
It was all Garcia.
They were covered in blood by the end of that. It makes it grosser that the man was covered in somebody else's blood entirely on his body. It was nasty. But it was a scrap, man. It was definitely a scrap. Garcia put in a lot of work, a lot of activity, and I think what really made the difference was Mahashad not being able to find the distance and not being able to keep his distance properly. There were a lot of moments where his strikes and his attacks closed the distance, and he never got back outside. So it allowed Garcia to take advantage, take him down, throw some hooks or elbows or whatever the case was. He gave him a lot of opportunities throughout that fight to do that, and I think it just added up.
Yeah, man. Mark?
Yeah, Mahashate always looked dangerous, but Garcia is just such a dog, and he really made the wrestling and the aggression that he had on the mat work for him. But yeah, the main topic was certainly the blood. What a friggin' cut this was on Garcia. And he found out after the fight that he lost 20% of his blood out there, which is nuts to even think about. And I don't know how you lose 20% of your blood. Dude, that's what they told him. They said he urgently had to have whatever the fuck they did to him because he lost 20% of his blood.
Oh, my God.
Probably had a transfusion. They probably had to put blood back in him.
Maybe.
That's crazy.
I don't know how you lose that much of your blood and still function well enough to win a fight, but I guess you can. So, yeah, it's a tough, gritty, gutty win for Garcia.
Okay. Two more. In the welterweight division, let's see. Oh, I forgot. Somebody help me with this last name. I'm going to butcher it.
Fakhradinov.
Renat Fakhradinov defeated Brian Battle by unanimous decision. Mark, take it.
I teased that we may be looking at this outcome when I mentioned this as a fight to highlight last week, and Renat walked over Brian Battle from bell to bell. This was an absolute wrestling clinic, and then in round 3, Renat even dropped some for good measure, and honestly, I wonder how long the list is of UFC welterweights who could have stopped Renat's wrestling on this night, because he looked like a man who not many humans could have stopped. So it's going to be interesting to see these guys deal with him as he moves his way up here.
Omar.
Yeah, man. Brian Battle did not look great. He looked outclassed, frankly. I think he kind of saw what his ceiling was currently, because not being able to stop takedowns and being kind of dominated like that at this point, especially now that everybody's seen it, everybody's going to do it if they can. And I think a lot of people in the top of those divisions, if they have to, they definitely will. So the one thing I will say about Brian Battle is he doesn't seem like the type who's going to go back and continue to do the same thing. I would imagine he goes back and he tries to, add something to his game to make him better. I know he said in the cage to Fakhradinov that he's coming for him, that he'll be back, and he wants another rematch with him at some point down the line, which I respect. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to just take that loss and just leave it like that. He wants that one back, but I think he knows. We've joked about him and his math skills, but I think he knows and is smart enough to know that he can't come in there with the same shit. Like, he's got to make a significant change in the way that he fights in order for him to be able to beat guys like this. So hopefully we see that out of him in the future. But a great performance from Fakhradinov.
Okay, one more. Sergey Morozov defeats Journey Newsom by unanimous decision. Omar, stick it with you. Take it.
Yeah, it was a good fight. Honestly, I think out of all the fights that ended up happening in this night, I was probably the least impressed out of this one. Maybe Mark has a different take. But it wasn't my favorite fight of the night. But I give credit to Morozov for doing what he did. I think I had him winning all 3 rounds in that fight. It's good for him.
Mark, take us home.
Morozov's good, man. He's got skills everywhere. He shows it in every fight. You got to be pretty good to beat him. His UFC losses are Umar Nurmagomedov and Douglas Silva de Andrade, and that one was a wild fight that he was winning. So Jerry Newson just isn't high enough level, and he couldn't stop Morozov from working his game, specifically his wrestling. Once Morozov was connected to him, he really had a hard time getting him off, and Morozov works his way to a nice win.
All right, boys, that does it for this week's lightning round and recap portion of the show.